There's a big question that people ask about community stores, and that is, why does food cost so much? Well, in this Little Fish and OT3 video, we're going to explain why, so that the ordinary person on the community can understand. Now, clearly cheaper prices are very important, but we're going to talk about one big main reason why food does cost as much as it does. Now let's suppose we go from our community and go to shop in town. The shops in town, they're cheaper than the community store, but they're still expensive, and when you're on low wages, it's a lot of money. So suppose we buy some things for $10. We pay it into the till, and when that person opens the till drawer, we can see there's a lot of money in that till. So when there's a lot of money, look at all that money there compared to what we pay in. When there's so much money, couldn't we pay a bit less, surely? Well, let's have a look at this. Let's suppose we pay $8 instead of 10, and we had $2 left over for ourselves, and that shop, it would still have heaps of money. In fact, aren't they being a little bit hard on us, making us pay $10? Well, let's go and find out why we're paying that price. One of the reasons. So let's follow our $10 in that town store. Where does it go? Well, you can see it goes into the till, and then we can see when the till drawer opens there's a lot of money. Now, over about 6 months, most stores, like an average community store, would probably have $1 million go into that till. So this is the $1 million, and you can see here 100,000, 200, 300, 400, 500,000, half a million, 600, 700, 800,000, 900,000, 1 million. So there's one thing I should say, and that is that we don't see what happens to that money after it's gone in the till. So let's just follow that through. Here's that $1 million worth of sales. It's going into the store. We could call it a tank. It's a good example. A tank. It's flowing through, and it flows through, and we have to pay for a lot of things. And we have to pay for freight, might be a truck or a barge. We've got to pay wages, power, and so on. And we can see that the red bar here of expenses is nearly as big as this blue bar of the money coming in. And in fact, in expenses, we've got 900,000. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 400,000, 500,000, half a million, 600, 700, 800, 900,000. So let's see how much is actually flowing over. So if we went and had a look how much was actually flowing over, we could see that the profit money left over is very small. See how little is flowing over, and that's only 100,000 left over. So even in a good store, this little bit here is what's left over, 100,000. Now let's have a deeper look at that size of that money and how it all works. So now let's look at what we mean when we say $1 million. That's a huge amount of money to think about. So here we've got us putting our little $10 into the till, and in 6 months that store may have $1 million, may have a lot more, but probably has $1 million going in it flows into the tank, through, out to pay all the expenses, the freight, all the food, the wages. 900,000, a little bit flows over, and that little bit of profit. Well, just how big is $1 million? Well, I think this will help you really see clearly. $1 million in $20 notes would fill a bin, a wheelie bin or a garbage bin. So that's a lot of money. And when we compare it to our wages, well, here you are. This here is what our wages would be if we were on low wages, $350 a week. So handling all this money flows in. That's $1 million, literally $1 million. Really, that's a photo of $1 million. And that is what is spent, except this little bit here that I've coloured out. All that has to go on expenses. So it means that all that's left over is $100,000 overflowing over the top of the tank to profit. So even in a good food store, we're only making this little bit of money by selling all these things here. Now, of course, we all want to pay less, but let's have a look why paying less may cause problems. And we're going to look at this as if the same number of people came into the shop. So from before, we can see our $10 goes in. We've got the $1 million worth of sales, which is bigger than our expenses, which isn't quite as big as the blue. The red isn't as big as the blue, and we're left over with $100,000 profit. Okay, so let's have a look at the first thing. If we only pay $8, well, surely we'd be happy, we'd save a couple of dollars, and the store wouldn't really miss it. Well, we've seen how little that profit is, so let's follow this through and see what happens. If we save $2, then the sales goes down by 2 as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 500,000, 600, 700, 800,000, 8, 900, 1 million. We're missing this bit of money. So what happens? Supposing no extra people come in. This is very true on communities, very isolated. Unlikely more people will shop, but they might. But we'll look at it as if they won't, to keep it easy to understand. Here we've got money flowing in, but we still have to pay the same amount to the truck, the barge for the freight. We have the food, the wages, no difference. And now you'll notice that we've got this red expenses bar is bigger than the blue money bar where the sales are flowing in. So we have less. The money in the tank isn't enough to cover all the expenses. The rim of the tank goes red and says, well, hey, we're short. And when we see if there's any overflow, obviously if we haven't filled up a tank, there will be no overflow, and the store may not have enough money to pay all of its expenses. Let's look at this in a little bit more detail. So now we're going to look at why a community store has higher expenses than a town store. So from before, we paid in our $10, and if everyone did that, the sales were $1 million. The expenses, the red bar, were a little bit less at 900,000, and the profit was the leftover money. So that profit or leftover money, that's good. Now let's see what happens if we do the same on the community. We're going to pay the same price on the community that we pay in town. So we put in our $10. So here's the community, the store on the community. We pay $10. Now let's see what will happen. Well, here we are, the sales are good. That's $1 million worth of sales. And when we see the sales money flowing into the tank, we see something very interesting. We see that the freight and the food is actually, we're paying, is more expensive. It costs a lot of money for a truck or a barge to go a long way out to a community, and we have to pay for that. And this orange part of the bar here is the extra expenses. So we've got 500, 600, 700, 800, 900,000, but we have to pay those extra expenses 1 million and 1,100,000 expenses. So if we didn't pay anything, pay any extra, no extra sales coming in, then we pay the same on the community that we paid in town, the store would make a loss. That's $100,000 loss. So once we pay for all those things, we'll make a loss. Now, where will we get that money from? We'd have to dip into our savings, and eventually they'll run out and the store will go broke. So on our community, we need to pay a bit more. So from before, remember we paid in $10. The sales were $1 million, the blue bar, but expenses were greater than were in town. So the red bar and the orange bar together, they're bigger than the blue bar, so expenses bigger than sales, gives us our loss. Now suppose that we paid in $12. So let's suppose we have to pay a couple of dollars extra. And what this does, assuming that people keep shopping, it's not too much of a price rise, too much expensive, then we've got $1 million coming in sales. So 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1 million. And we get an extra 2 in, so that's 100,000, 200,000, gives us 1,200,000. Now let's look and just follow through in the tank, and we can see that the sales goes into the tank, down through and out to pay expenses, which are obviously 1,100,000. And then when we look to see if there's any leftover money or profit or overflow, we can see yes, there is overflow. So we can see the top of the tank is green, there is enough money to flow over, and we have made $100,000 profit. So you can see that it's a fine line between charging the prices that are charged at community stores and making a profit, enough profit, a small one that supports the community and makes sure that we've got a steady supply of food. On the other hand, if we all want cheaper prices, so if that $2 that was going to go in 10 and makes 2 12, if that $2 was going to go into our own pocket, we'd have to be really careful that the store didn't make a loss. This is just the first basic story of the community store. And of course, as we go deeper in, we might start to ask, well, can we actually get cheaper prices and get more people in the store and still make a profit? Or can we run the store more effectively? Or can we make sure our stores run honestly? Or we need a clear financial statement, that is, a clear money story, so we all know what's happening in our own store. So this is where Little Fish and OT3 can help you. We will help you further down that track or point you to other people that can help you be in charge of your own community store.